Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today, we're gonna go out to the apple orchards, picking some apples, gathering some other rare ingredients, bringing them back to the bakery, and putting together some pies, baking them, and then selling them at the market. Today we're gonna take a look at Pie Town, Spies, Lies, and Apple Pies. This is from Renegade Game Studios. It's for 2 to 4 players, takes 60 to 90 minutes to play. I'm gonna be doing a rule school, which means I'm gonna teach you how to set up and play the game so that you don't have to read the rules yourself. I'm going to put timestamps below me of all the different sections in case you want to jump to a specific spot. But without further ado, let's get started. Pie Town is a strategy game for 2 to 4 players where each player will run their own store. They'll be going to the orchards and pulling different ingredients depending on how good that worker is. You'll be baking pies depending on the type of recipe you're doing, or even do it in your secret recipe that nobody knows what it is, but they'll be trying to figure it out through deduction throughout the game depending on what you've baked. If you're clever enough, you can even bake your opponent's secret recipe for a lot of points. You'll be selling pies for different amounts of points. You'll be hiring new workers that will be able to be used in future rounds. You'll be upgrading your kitchen, allowing you to bake more pies, get more points for pies, and store more goods. But be careful, because other workers that are better than yours can spy on you and look at what's in your secret recipe. Let's see if you can run your store better than everyone else, and in the final bake-off, guess your opponent's secret recipes. Each player is going to place a store board in front of them. They are all the same. Next, each player will also take all of the pieces from one single color and place them in and around their store board as mentioned here. First, you'll have a dry erase card which has your image of your color on one side, and it'll be used to keep notes on the dry erase board on the back. Each player will also get pie tokens. They will then take small tokens of different types and place them here. The apple they'll place on the left side of the storage board where it says 8. The chef's hat will go directly beneath the 1, which is in the kitchen, and the lock will be on the right side in the bake. Each player will also take 2 of their dice and place them in the break room, making sure that one of them is at a level 2 and one of them is at a level 3. These levels are very important to start the game. There'll also be 2 other dice of your color. Keep them off outside your store board for now. Everyone will also get a scoring marker. We'll be placing those before we start the game. And everyone will get a secret recipe box, which will be empty right now, and a dry erase marker. Everyone will also, in their storage board, select one of each of the 3 colored apples known as common ingredients: a green, a red, and an orange apple. Take the pie slice scoring marker for each player and place it in the top left under the 0 spot on the pie convention board. This is how you'll track scores throughout the game. Also take the rolling pin and place it onto round number 1. This is how you'll be tracking rounds throughout the game. Next, you're going to take all the ingredient tokens that are in the game and place them in the ingredient bag. Then each player is going to one at a time secretly look into this bag, and they're going to take 2 of the common ingredients, which are any 2 of the apples. And they're going to take any 1 of the 3 rare ingredients, which are bananas, pumpkins, and strawberries, and they're going to place it secretly in their secret recipe box. Notice 2 apples, 1 star. The star is essentially the rare ingredient, which is any one of these 3s. So any 2 apples, any one of these 3 rares, and place those tokens secretly in that box. Each player will do this. Next, from that ingredient bag, you'll randomly take out 2 ingredients and you'll place them on each of the hexes in the game. If you're playing with 3 players, you'll also fill out this one, and if you're playing with 4 players, you'll also fill out this one. And finally, give the first player chef hat to a random player. The object of the game is to score the most points, and you'll be doing so by both baking and selling pies at the market. The game is played over multiple rounds. Each round, players will, one at a time in clockwise manner, will be placing dice from their break room to different places within their store board to do different actions. And the amount of actions you'll be able to take during a round has to do with however many workers you have on your store board that have been hired. At the beginning of the game, you have 2 to deal with. I'm going to go over all the different actions now. Now at the beginning of the game, you always have 2 workers to use. You can hire more later. In this case, they start with very specific values, and you never roll or move these dice unless told to. Now you can take one of these dice and place it here on the orchard of one of these dice spots. Let's say I put the 3 here. This player can now select any 3 ingredients that touch where this is. That's from this hex, or this hex, because those are the 3 that are touching here. So this player decides to take all 3 of these rare ingredients and place them in their storage. Now notice at the beginning of the game, you can only store a maximum of 8 ingredients. I have 6, I have room for 2 more later. After you do one action, it'd be the next player clockwise, and so on and so forth until all the workers are gone, but I'm just gonna go through all the other actions. If you bake, you place your die on the bake, and you can bake a number of pies depending on what level this is. So I can bake up to 2 pies. Now the types of pies that you can make are shown here. This is 3 apples with 3 common ingredients. This is 2 apples and 1 rare ingredient, and this is 2 rare ingredients and 1 apple, and this is the secret recipe. If you remember, the secret recipe is going to be 2 apples and 1 rare ingredient, but they're the 3 that make up your secret recipe that you selected at the beginning of the game. So let's say the 2 pies, one of them is going to be my secret recipe, and the other one is going to be a common and 2 stars, because I have 3 apples, which would be right there, and I have 3 rare ingredients, which would be 1, 2, 3. Now when you place and you bake these pies, you place them all in one big pool. You don't let the others know which one is for which pie. And so always when you're building your secret recipe, you always want to build at least one other pie. Otherwise the other players will know exactly what your secret recipe is. So in this case, I'm building 2 pies. I'm building one like this and one with the secret recipe. And you just put them all in one pool and let the others figure it out. At this point, the other players can make notes on their boards as to what you're building, and they can try to figure out what your secret recipe is over the course of the game. So you would take all the ingredients that were here and you would place them back into that ingredient bag that you originally seeded the orchard with at the beginning of the round. You'd then take 1 pie token for each of the pies that you've baked, and you'll place them down at the bottom here, and they always slide down as low as they can go in this. So we've now baked 2 pies here. Now each pie is going to get you a certain amount of points depending on the kitchen. You start here and you'll get 1 point. We'll talk about upgrading this later, but that is baking pies. Also keep in mind there's a certain amount of pies you can put in each column depending on the amount of players you're playing with. With 2-player game, you can place them up to the 2nd level. In a 3-player game, you can place them up to the 3rd level where it says 3P for 3 players. And in a 4-player game, all of the rows can be used. Now in this example, we baked our own secret recipe. However, if through deduction you figured out what you think is another player's secret recipe, you can take the ingredients that you had, place them in your hand, and secretly show those 3 ingredients to the player that you're trying to bake their secret recipe from. That player will secretly look at that and tell you either yes, you've been able to bake my secret recipe. In this case, you'd put your own pie token as shown previously. Or if they say no, they don't have to tell you how many were right or wrong, but you would take the 3 ingredients that you were using, placing them back in the bag, and you do not get to bake that pie. You can also decide on your turn to sell pies at the market. In order to do so, you take your die, you place it on a spot, and you can either sell all of one column or all of the bottom row. So if it was this player, I might go like this, place this here, sell bottom row. So we'd sell all of these, and each of these is worth the points below. So this is 7 plus 4 plus 3, so 14 points. You also get to add the number of the level of your die. So this would now be 17 points because we're adding 3 to 14. You'd also get to draw 2 ingredients from the bag, and then these would all go back into your supply, and these would all fall down. Also keep in mind, when you sell a row or column of pies, the opponents whose pies are sold will also get points. For example, if I went here and we sell all of one column, if we sold all of these, I would get 3 points for this, but the green player is going to get 3 points for each of these, so 6 points. Now I'm going to get these 3 additional points for playing here, but the other players are still getting points for their pies, and their pies would be coming off as well, going back into their supply. Notice that this spot needs 3 players at least playing, and this spot needs at least 4 players playing for you to go there. Now, if you wanted to hire, you would place one of your die there on your turn, and you would take one of the dice that was off the side of your storage board at the beginning of the game, and you'd place it here as a value of 1. You'll be able to use that worker next round. Now, if you go on the upgrade spot, you can do one of the following. You can upgrade your bakery, which would remove this lock and allow you to place 2 different workers on the bakery to bake pies throughout a round. If you upgrade the kitchen, you'll now receive 2 points for every pie baked instead of just 1. And if you upgrade the storage, you now can hold 14 ingredients instead of 8. Each time you go here, you're only upgrading any one of these 3. Now, there's a certain minimum number that you need to be able to place on certain spots. I'm going to go over these later. I want to go over the basic actions first. When going to the pie convention, you can decide to assign a new starting player, which is giving this to any player, including yourself. Or you can change one ingredient of your secret recipe, and you do this if you think or know for sure that somebody knows your secret recipe. You can take one ingredient out and put it into this bag and pick another one from it to place in here so that you always have 2 commons and 1 rare ingredient. There's 2 locations in the game where you can be spied on or spy on other players. The orchard is one of them. In order to spy, you would place a die worker on top of another player, and it has to be at least 1 higher. So this was a level 3 from the purple player. This player could place anything higher, in this case a 4, on top. You would take the difference. 4 minus 3 is 1. This green player would get to go into the secret recipe box of the purple player and secretly grab 1. And that's because it's the difference of these 2. And they would look at this ingredient. The purple player does not know which of these ingredients has been spied on, but they only get to look at one of them in this case. Later on, a 3rd player might go here and go on top of this player. A 5 on top of 4, again, they could look at 1, but they're only spying on the player that's directly below them. Now, when spying, you can also take the action of this space, but it is not mandatory. The other place you can do this is at the market board, which is where you typically sell the pies. Again, the player can go on top. In this case, a 6 on top of a 3. This player gets to see all 3 of the secret ingredients of the green player. And again, when you do this, taking the action of the board is not mandatory. So you'll continue going clockwise, taking 1 action with one of your workers until all players have placed all their workers. Then it will be the end of the round, and you'll be pulling all your workers back into your break room. But this is an important part that some of the spots in the game require you to move levels up or down on your workers. For example, the orchard, after you're done and you're pulling it back, you must increase this by 1. So this would go from a 3 to a 4, and you would place this in your break room. When you hire, the one that was starting at a 1 would come in as a 1, but the one you placed here would be -2 down to a 1. This is important because it means the least level, or the smallest level that you can place here, is a 3. Because I could not place a 2 or a 1, because this would go -2, and I don't have a level high enough to do that. So to go into higher, you have to be a 3 or higher. With upgrade, you have to be a 2 or higher because you -1. The bakery adds 1, and then depending on the action you took, it'll either add 1 or -1. So if you were taking this, change 1 ingredient to secret recipe, it would have to be at least a 2 to be able to place this down to a 1 once you bring it back to the break room. Next, you'd clear off all of the ingredients on the orchard and place them into the ingredient bag. You would then move the round marker up to the next round. If nobody was assigned the first player marker, pass it clockwise to the next player. At the beginning of the next round, you would fill this up randomly just like you did at the beginning of the game. If it was the end of the 9th round, you'd go on to the final bake-off. In the final bake-off, each player gets to guess the other player's secret recipe 1 at a time. When this happens, one player will pick out manually the 3 ingredients they think are their secret ones. They will secretly show it to that player. That player will say whether they've gotten 0, 1, 2, or 3 of them right, and you'll get a certain amount of points, either positive or negative, depending on the outcome shown here, but you can decide not to guess and just get 0 points. Each player will get to do this for each other player. At the end of that, you get to see who's winning on the score track. But before you do that, in the market, any pie that's unsold is worth 1 point, and then whoever has the most points is the winner. The tiebreaker is the player with the strongest workforce, which means basically the sum of all their levels of their dice. Well, I hope this helped you dive right into Pie Town and get to the fun quicker than you normally would have. If you have more questions, the best place to put them is in the link in the description of this video. Will lead you to the best place to ask them. That's because not only will I see it and be notified, but so will the publisher, and they might be able to help out and answer any further questions.